All right, everybody. Welcome to the fantasy basketball podcast called the Fadeaway. Hell yeah! All right, I'm y'all's host Freddie, the handsome devil. You already know what's going on. And then we got our co-commissioner Gerard Ramos, runner-up last year for our league. This year we have 20 people. It's a pretty big league, and we'll see what happens. But Gerard, you want to say a few words?
Thank you. I want to say thank you to all the fans out here that support the Fantasy G League. I'm so excited to be here for the first ever podcast of our league. Just shows how much our league's growing, and I'm really happy to have you as be your first guest.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually doing shit this year, so here we go. All right, so basically how this is going to go, at least for this first episode, we're going to look through all the teams, talk about some of the most important players on the teams, and then kind of just have a general synopsis of whether we think they're strong or not. First up is Gerard's team, and then also we're going to say if they made playoffs, were they runner-up, were they the winners last year, et cetera, et cetera. But first up is Gerard's team. I think the biggest standout here is probably the thing that pops up to me is that he has Damian Lillard and Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons seems like a dark horse, but
Yeah. So I was kind of looking at when I was preparing for this episode, just kind of looking at each team, and like one player I think would really impact each team. And obviously looking at my team, and I knew this when I was drafting him, I took the risk, is Ben Simmons. He looked really good in the preseason, and honestly, at his best, he's a top 25 fantasy player in categories and a punt, free throws, methods. So assuming his countenance been going well in the offseason, I highly expect a big season out of Ben Simmons. And yeah, I mean, I'm the manager too, so if I'm the manager, it's obvious that this team's going to be the best team in the league. And you'll see that in my power rankings when the fantasy basketball magazine Step Back comes out.
bro, honestly, if Ben Simmons hits threes, that's going to be some crazy ass shit. But yeah, next team we have is for the first time, we have basically two co-managers. It's Hong had a team last year, no?
No, Hong and Alvin were not in the league last year.
Okay. Well, Hong and Alvin were both not in the team last year. We have Hong's Mongolian Grill. First thing that comes to my mind when I look at this squad is basically Jamal Murray coming off his injury, basically didn't play all last year, and Jared Allen's coming off of his first All-Star appearance. And same thing, Chris Middleton's not going to be back for a little bit too. He's going to miss about 3 to 4 weeks at the beginning of the season, which is actually a good pickup to pick him up on the IR. But
yeah, man, you're spot on. All the players you named, Jared Allen coming off a big year, Jamal Murray, perennial. Well, actually, I don't believe Jamal Murray's never had an All-Star season. He was on track to have one until he got hurt that year. But if he's anything like bubble Jamal Murray, I could see Alvin. Well, if Alvin and Hong weren't the managers, I'd consider this maybe a decent team. But from what I know about those two guys, it's like a co-managed team. I've Hong has grad school, Alvin's busy working in New York. I'm very curious how this is gonna work, how they're gonna mesh together. They're first timers. This is the big leagues, but having Joel Embiid's never a bad thing. But looking at your team, I agree. Chris Middleton, whenever he comes back, will be a big part of this team.
Yeah,
I could see maybe borderline playoff team. If Hong doesn't mess with the team at all, they'll probably in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's important that you note that, because a big thing about just fantasy in general is just devoting a little bit of time to just do your research per week. And sometimes yeah. But Himmy Turner, one of my brother, of course, Gerald. One of the Voodoo Boys did not make the playoffs last year. Some of the key players, just looking at it, Brandon Clark just got a huge extension. Kendrick Nunn didn't play at all last year. And Trae Young and Andrew Wiggins. Also, Christian Wood. Pretty big players there. But that's all I really got for this team. I can't really think about much, but
you're good. I think you're
a lot of fucking centers.
Yeah, I think you're being nice to this team because he's your brother. This team is ass. Just looking at this roster straight up, he got Trae Young, solid pick. But I'm looking at the rest of this team. It's a lot of question marks over here for me, and players that I think Gerald might have reached for a little early, like Andrew Wiggins, Jaylen Brown, great real life players. I'm not too sure about their fantasy contribution. Same thing with Bobby Portis. One of the reasons Bobby Portis was great last year is because Brook Lopez was out for the majority of last season. Yeah. Can he have that same production? Who knows? Christian Wood, obviously new team in Dallas. They said he's gonna come off the bench this year. I don't really buy it. I still think he'll get starters minutes, but he really tanks your free throw percentage, and he has it's well just noted his attitude problems. And then the rest of this team, if you're looking at it, everyone below Brandon Clark is very much just like a fringe NBA player. Gerald will. I'll be very surprised if this team makes it, like per usual. I think Gerald will miss the playoffs like he usually does. Gerald, if you're watching this, I hope you take that personally.
Okay, so we got Cody's team, Young Syrup. Big thing that sounds out to me. He has Anfernee Simons. Pretty good number 2 to Lillard out there, especially since they got rid of McCullough. And also a big thing here is that he has Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell just got traded to the Cavs. So last year last year he did not make playoffs. So I mean, what are your general thoughts about how he's going to perform this year?
About Cody's team, you know what's crazy?
I think it's solid.
Oh, you think it's solid?
I think it's all right.
I don't. So Cody was drunk last year when he drafted, and I think he drafted better last year than he did this year straight sober, if I'm being honest.
Damn.
Like looking at this team, I mean Kyrie is like a solid pickup. Like I like the Kyrie Donovan backcourt, very very strong. It's the front court for me. Like you have John Collins, who's alright. Al Horford, I don't know. I mean,
I think it's too guard heavy.
Yeah, I think that's how Cody usually goes. I guess he loves ball handlers. Wink, wink. And then Al Horford, I don't know. Like he'll get a lot of run in the beginning of the season while Rob Williams is recovering from injury. Yeah. But looking at this team, definitely has a lot of scorers for sure with Irvin, Mitchell, Poole, and Simons. But looking at the rest of the team, I just don't know if he has enough to make the playoffs. Cody, maybe drink more next draft and you'll do better.
Hot damn. So Team Peng didn't make the playoffs last year. I mean, I'm kind of just looking at some of the people. Like, the only person I really see that's going to, like, really pop off. I mean, Anthony Edwards, I think, I don't know. I don't think this team has enough bigs for me to really kind of. They're going to struggle a lot in blocks and rebounds. Mitchell, Robinson, and Jalen Smith, I don't think can get it done all by themselves. And Robert Covington, he's a defensive specialist, so I don't know how far I see this team going, but.
Yeah,
I think it's an okay team. Like I think it's middle of the pack, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm actually can't remember if Roy made it or not. When you were asking me about this beforehand, I could name 7 of the 8 teams that made it last year. But Roy might have been the 8th. I can't remember. Anyway, fun fact about Roy's draft. His girlfriend actually drafted the beginning of the draft for him because he was dealing with some work stuff. Damn. So that might explain some of these later picks. But overall, I think the Edwards-Butler combo is like, I believe he picked 20th. Yeah. So the Edwards-Butler combo back-to-back is really exciting. Not sure how it will work fantasy-wise. I thought of, like, when I was looking at all these mock drafts, Anthony Edwards going super high. I don't really see it. He reminds me very much of, like all he does is really score, which is like very valuable in early rounds. But you never know. Like I like him. Like if this was a comedy team, this team would be amazing because Jimmy and Anthony are really hilarious people off the court. Like I think they would be outstandingly hilarious. Robert Covington's always a solid fantasy player. I believe Roy had him on his team last year. Like really good shot blocker for his position. So I know. So in Mitch Robinson, like him, and Mitch could maybe get some blocks. I believe Robert Covington actually had the 7th highest block rate in the league last year.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that.
I had Bogdan, bro. Bogdan Bogdanovic, that bitch sucks. I'm glad I got rid of him. I didn't draft him this year. But I was expecting big things from him.
Fair. I think you dropped him pretty early last year too. Yeah. And the rest of this team, it's all right. I mean, Jimmy, Tyrese is supposed to take a step up this year. I'm curious how it does. I don't really see this team making the playoffs either.
Mm-hmm. All right. So your brother Jude, he made playoffs last year, and he has a pretty solid team. I'm expecting Desmond Bane to be very solid for him. It was actually one of the people I was looking at. But I kind of look at the front court play here. Like Walker Kessler, I mean, he's going to be on a losing team because Utah's kind of in a rebuilding state, especially after they got rid of both their centers. I mean, their center pieces, I should say. And, PJ Tucker, he's really defensive specialist. And Miles Turner, I don't know. Miles Turner, he's good, but he's not all-star good. So we'll see where it goes from here. Any thoughts on this?
This team, like you said, it's my brother's team, so I'm obliged to say it's gonna be garbage. But looking at his team, it looks like he's obviously going for threes with Steph, Desmond, MPJ, very strong
Threes
in
and
threes.
steals, it looks
I won't
like.
be surprised if this team wins, like leads the league in threes this year. And he got Malik Monk just to put the icing on top. If I had to pick an X factor here, for sure it's Miles Turner. He's expected to be traded from Indiana. An Indiana team that's going to be
He might go to
tanking
the
for
Lakers, yep.
team tanking for Wembanyama. But then again, they're coached by Rick Carlisle. He might try to make them win some games.
Yeah.
Like as long as they have Miles Turner, like Miles Turner is probably going to lead the league in blocks again
Yeah.
this year. Dude's a very good, solid player. Depending on how often he plays and how long it takes him to get traded, I think Miles Turner could be the X factor of this team. And then I like Bones Highland too. Not just the name; he's a pretty solid back.
Yeah, he's a
point
good
guard.
player.
Especially with Jamal Murray coming off the injury, probably rest back to back. So Bones will get a lot of run.
I've noticed a lot of like in general just from playing. It's like a lot of these people on losing teams typically perform pretty well. Speaking of losing teams, this man has two people. Jaren made the playoffs last year. Has two people on the Detroit Pistons. Jaden Ivey, I think he was number 6. Pretty solid player. Kevin Porter just got a huge extension as well. LeBron, I'm kind of seeing... LeBron and Ingram, I feel like if LeBron is still... LeBron, every single year, kind of amazes us because he's like... He keeps on doing shit, and we're just like, bro, you're so old, but like it doesn't even look like it. But... I see this team probably making playoffs as well, but
Yeah,
it's a solid team, good all around.
So Jaren, he's a pretty solid manager. He's pretty active in the league. He knows ball. I'll say looking at his team, obviously LeBron's LeBron. Don't have to go there. Pascal's interesting, big. Him and Adams will grab a lot of boards for him. I'm not too big a fan of Karis LeVert. The Detroit rookies, as you mentioned, would be pretty interesting, especially later in the year.
Yep.
Like those guys,
As
they're
develop.
gonna start off pretty bad. I'm sure. Like Jaden Ivey's probably have bad shooting percentage, and Duran will be playing behind Isaiah Stewart for a little bit. So we'll see whenever. Like he'll eventually be their starting center. So maybe later in the year, those guys will play a big role. But the guy that kind of sticks out to me is Kevin Porter Jr. He's set to have, like, I think he's, third, fourth season right now. I'm curious to see how he plays now that he has, like, actual talent around him with Jalen Green and Jabari Smith. So hopefully his assists get up. Maybe his percentages get better because there'll be less pressure on him to do as well of a scoring load. But either way, I think Kevin Porter, like, determines how good this team is in the season.
Yeah, we'll see. Because I know Houston seems like they're tanking for Victor. So, the Master Vaders, Isaac was the winner last year. And he has a pretty solid team this year, I would say. The big thing that kind of speaks out to me right now is the center. Sengun, people are saying that he's supposed to have a really, really pop-off season this year in just all categories. And TJ McConnell was actually someone I was looking for because his steal rate is insane. But yeah, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so actually, so as you mentioned, I'm a writer for the Step Back magazine. Writer, publisher, founder. Just call me a tycoon, basically, of the fantasy basketball magazine game. Anyway, So I got to do an exclusive interview with Isaac Medina himself. And without giving too much away, we're in agreement that Alperen Sengun is the most interesting player on this team. He was flying up mock draft boards just because, one, he's on a shitty Houston team. They're going to give him a lot of play time. They just traded away high-usage player in Christian Wood. Alperen, he gives you a lot of Jokic vibes with his passing ability. Not much defensively, but like he could be a total offensive weapon and a pretty exciting Houston team. And then also want to bring up LaMelo Ball. He'll miss the first couple weeks of the season due to injury. 3 to 4, so we'll see how he is coming back, and we'll see how, like, I don't think Michael Jordan is the type to tank. But if Charlotte starts off really poorly, it won't surprise me if they decide to rest LaMelo more than necessary, and same thing goes for SGA on OKC, who's known for aggressively tanking.
So Step Tad, last year he basically had a hospital team because I think he had Kyrie and like Harden, and they were just out for like a good portion of the season. But this year he picks back up the Harden. Herbert Jones is a really good contributor for the Pelicans. Miles Bridges is kind of a weird pick here because I think he's still dealing with legal issues. I don't know if he's still playing. And I mean, DeRozan was in the running for MVP last year, so I mean, those are the ones that really pick out to me. But I don't know if this is the playoff team. What do you think?
I am actually really high on this team. I'm no legal expert, so I'm not gonna try and get into the whole Miles Bridges situation. I really don't think he should play this year, but that's not up to me,
Yeah.
But even without Miles Bridges, this team's pretty solid. James Harden, DeMar DeRozan, and Chris Paul, who, by the way, I thought it was ridiculous. He went 50th in our league. Like that's insane
crazy,
that he was
man.
able to pick him up 50th.
Yep.
Like Chris Paul is gonna be a top 30 player this year, assuming he stays healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, those three alone, like that's going to be a very strong free throw percentage team. This team probably leads the league in free throw percentage. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, DeMar DeRozan, on my favorite team, Chicago Bulls, best player there last year, made us completely relevant last year. He'll be insane. Like, they'll score a lot with Harden and DeRozan, and those guys go to the line a lot. He'll get a lot going. I'm not sure about, like, the Kobe White. And, like, obviously he's going to stream those guys at the bottom there from Royce O'Neal down. But I think, like, a solid lineup here. The only thing I'm looking at is he only has one center on his team, Mo Bamba. And if this was if somehow best song was a category, maybe his team would lead that. But unfortunately, it's not. It's only 9 categories.
Yeah.
But I really like his first 3 up there. Paul Harden, DeRozan will be really strong.
And Derek White coming off the bench in Boston, I think that will give him a lot of weird. Contribution points in just all these categories, depending on how Boston plays throughout the year. This is Team Manuel Marino. He's a first-timer in this league. He decided to go with, I think, his front court's not bad. Blake Griffin, I think he's past his prime, but, he also has Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert ideally should play the 5, and they're trying to probably play Cat more at the 4, so that takes care of your rebounds and blocks. Aaron Gordon's kind of streaky, but in terms of points, I think 3-pointers made. I don't know how I feel about this team, but you got more thoughts or?
Yeah, so the reason you're struggling to talk about this team is because this is the worst team in the league by far. Just looking at it, Manny, I really hope you're watching this, man. I appreciate the $10 donation to this league. I know you're Isaac's friend. That's even more reason to make fun of you, dude. Manny, this team is hot garbage. You picked Ja Morant in the 9th overall pick. I don't know where you got. Maybe even in a points league, that would be hard to justify. Klay Thompson, interesting. You'll get some threes there for sure. Rudy Gobert is gonna make you competitive by default in blocks, and maybe that's the only thing.
Rebounds too.
The one pick I remember when you were drafting, you picked Benedict Mathurin with I think the 89th pick, which in theory would make him around your 4th or 5th best player draft. I think 5th best player draft wise. I like Benedict. He looked like the best during summer league and preseason. Looks like the most NBA ready rookie on a team that's willing to tank. I think you drafted him way too early, and there was more value in there. So just a pro tip for me. Guys like that, just because a Reddit thread tells you to reach for them and they'll be Rookie of the Year, I'd say, you could probably hold off on that, especially in a 20-team league where when you reach, you really got to be sure about that reach. I'm not saying Benedict won't be bad. He might probably all-rookie first team, but I don't know. That combined with, the Ja Morant, I like Ja, in real life, this team would still be ass in real life, honestly. Just looking at this is easily going to be... I'll be very surprised if this is not the worst team in the league, assuming everybody pays attention.
Yeah.
Tank
for Tatum. Didn't make playoffs last year, and some of the biggest people... Zion's coming off of just an injury-riddled season last year. And he has a rookie in there, Mark Williams, Duke rookie. He went to Duke, right? He was their center? Yeah. So... I kind of look at this team. I don't see a lot of Isaiah Hartenstein. It's I don't know. I'm kind of looking at this team. I'm wondering, at least, is the front court gonna perform well? Because Tatum's more of a score first kind of guy, so he might struggle there. And I know Pirtle is this, but yeah. What thoughts do you have?
Yeah. I like that first 5 he has. It's obvious those are his first 5 picks. He filled it out like he was making a 2K roster.
Yeah, for sure.
Drew, Dinwiddie, Tatum, Williamson, Poto. That's a pretty strong starting 5. You cover pretty much all the stats there outside of maybe free throw shooting because Poto will kill that. But yeah, I really like the team. Obviously, the X factor here, looking at it, is Zion. Like if he plays, he's like an all-star level player.
Yeah.
Potentially a top 10 fantasy contributor. It looks like he's lost a lot of weight too after those viral pictures of him.
They were making the McDonald's memes about him. I felt so bad for him, bro.
Yeah, I think
he's looking good.
Yeah,
man.
I really think he's poised for a big year. And then Dinwiddie, I think was a low key sneaky good pick considering Brunson was traded away, so he'll get a lot of play time. And then you mentioned Mark Williams. Hopefully, Charlotte becomes smart and realize this dude's gonna be way better than Plumlee, who's there right now. Yeah. If he plays, he's got pretty good shot blocking potential. And to mention Hartenstein on New York now, he's a pretty solid shot blocker as well.
I think he'll struggle to take away minutes from Plumlee though, because Plumlee and LaMelo, they do play decently together, especially in their pick and roll. But we'll see. I don't know if Mark did a lot of pick and roll out there, but you'll see. So this is my team. I have not made playoffs in the last 3 years. I came close last year. I remember I was 9th, and I went on a 5 losing streak, and then just barely missed playoffs, which was some bullshit. But my biggest thing, my first pick, I believe, was Jokic. Jokic, reigning MVP, has a lot of value to him. And I think my team overall, I look to have more of a spread this time around. Because typically I would just kind of pick whoever I wanted per se, versus this year I kind of did more of my research, kind of thinking about threes made, assists, steals, thinking about Norman Powell. He would definitely produce a lot. Tyler Hero, he's always going to produce. Daniel Gafford, I'm thinking about Washington overall not having too much of a center. He would do pretty well. We got Grand Theft Alvarado. And Patty Mills, he's always going to come off the bench and do what he has to do because Brooklyn needs that bench scoring / lift. And he had the highest 3-point percentage last year and one of the highest 3 points made. But your thoughts on it?
Yeah, man, I really like this the Jokic Mobley front court. I think that's pretty strong, especially offensively. And Mobley, on that Cleveland team, he's gonna get a lot of touches. Even with Don Mitchell there, I think it would just make him a more effective player. Yeah. Looking at your squad, I can definitely tell you got a lot of specialists on here, like Buddy Hield, strictly threes. Gafford's like a blocks guy. Alvarado's a steals dude. And then Gafford was an interesting pick, just because you mentioned, because Porzingis is probably going to be the starter there, but, Porzingis got glass bones, so you never really know what's going to happen there. And obviously, Nikola Jokic will give you, a strong floor. I could see you fighting for a playoff spot, maybe be the first Bodu that makes it. Obviously, I'm rooting for you, man, except when you play me. Your team, I don't know. I think
my team this year is a lot more solid than it's been in several years. But, of course, I'm biased toward it, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, 1A. Your dad, Winston Ramos, he made the playoffs last year. I beat him for the first time last year, which was really nice. But, he has 2 New Yorkers on there and also 2 Clippers. So he has Terrence Mann and John Wall and Randall and Barrett. Barrett, I think, should have a really breakout season this year because last year he was playing pretty well. Same thing with DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter, I feel like with the combination of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, I feel like it's going to allow DeAndre Hunter to kind of come out of his shell a little bit because I don't feel like I feel like he's a guy he more comes off that second unit, right? So it's and then also he has Anthony Davis. That's the biggest thing that pumps up to me. Mr. Street Clothes himself, so we'll see if he can stay healthy. But what are your thoughts?
I told my dad this when we had dinner the other night. His team's pretty trash, honestly. I don't know. I mean, he's a pretty active manager, so he'll be competitive just on activeness alone and making savvy waiver wire pickups and maybe a couple of trades. But at first glance, this team is not very strong to me. John Wall is interesting, and then as you mentioned, Anthony Davis. He's pretty injury prone, and the Davis Bam combo when they're healthy, I think is pretty solid. I like Wendell Carter too, that big man 3.
I like Franz Wagner. I was just looking at that one.
Yeah, Wagner will be solid too.
Yeah,
I'm curious how Banchero affects his usage, but other than that, I don't know, the team's alright. I don't really see it though.
Yeah, Dinner Time by Justin Ching did not make the playoffs last year.
Not even close.
And he has Karl Anthony Towns. He's listed as a center here, which I'm kind of interesting because they sometimes midway through the season they do change up.
He'll definitely be the power forward.
Yeah, I think he'll change into a power forward. I think initially now it's just like, he is what he is, but he will change around. Devin Vassell, like with DeJounte Murray gone, he's gonna have a lot more minutes and I think a lot more impact on that team. But yeah, that's kind of where I kind of look at, but I don't see a lot happening from the squad, so I don't know.
He has Banchero and Smith, who are two of the more high end rookies.
Yeah.
This year, I'll be very interesting. I was intrigued when I saw him take those two guys. Like Jabari Smith could have easily went number one as well. Risk. I think they'll be alright later in the year. The Towns Garland combo I really like. I think Justin has a pretty solid team. And then speaking of like similar to how you said Devin Vassell will get a lot of usage in San Antonio, Monte Morris is going to be the starting point guard in Washington. Get to take as many shots as he wants next to Bradley Beal. That'll be interesting. And then Santi Aldama is interesting because Jaren Jackson Jr. is out. And there's like a lot of people saying Santi will be the number one pick. And then other than that, I think this team's a solid middle of the pack team for Justin, which is honestly good for him considering last year he was so garbage.
It's all good. Carlo Ramon, he did make the playoffs last year. Tyrese Haliburton, probably one of the bigger names that kind of speak out to me, mainly because he just got traded. He thought he would be a Kings player forever, but I mean, that boy can ball. He's going to fill up his stat sheet for the most part everywhere, and I think his front court is actually pretty good. Jeremy Grant and Vucevic. What is his name? How do you say it?
Vucevic.
Yeah, Vucevic. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're in the
Yeah.
You see that beautiful face.
All right, wait. This way.
You're like off. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, my fault. Vucevic and Ayton, that's a really solid front line. So I think overall I see this team pretty spread out, but just not pumping out enough numbers with the type of people he has. What do you think?
So Carlo's a pretty good basketball guy. I've been seeing a lot of Tyrese Haliburton hype coming in the season, but Carlo picked him up at 6, which was really high, and that's like a best case scenario for Tyrese. I think he could have gotten a lot of other players that were available to board that time, but Tyrese is his guy. He'll still be good this year. I just don't know if he'll return that top 6 value that Carlo was looking for. But the Ayton Vucevic, a lot of rebounds there. Jeremy Grant in Portland, he'll be taking a smaller role than he did in Detroit, but that might make him more efficient. And then same thing with D'Lo. I think he'll be pretty solid this year. Carlo's got a pretty solid team built to make the playoffs. Trey Jones is gonna be he's gonna get a lot of assists this year in San Antonio, and then Kelly Olynyk has a lot of early season value while Utah's trying to tank. He's probably the best center they got, which is just tells you how bad Utah is. And then Tari Eason's the last player, or Jalen Williams and Tari Eason, the 2 rookies I really want to talk about.
Jalen Williams is decent.
He'll be solid. And then Tari Eason, last guy I really want to talk about here. He was just popping off during the summer league. Yeah. Or not summer league, during the NBA preseason. I'm curious if that goes on to the regular season, but no problem taking a flyer on Tari.
Yeah, for sure. I don't even know.
Quintessential Yotsu brothers.
Okay, yeah. So Jonathan Moss' team didn't make playoffs last year, but one of the bigger things here is that he has Devin Booker and Brunson. Kind of rivals because I remember they went back and forth in the playoffs a little bit. But Brunson, new place for him. Devin Booker, a lot to prove, especially after that exit to Dallas last year. His front line, his front court. Sabonis is always solid. Valanciunas always solid. Kuminga, I don't know if he's going to get the points. And Achua does get PT. And, Draymond Green I feel like he's always a solid pick because he just fills out everything that you need, except for threes, but he does steals, he does blocks, he does rebounds, he does a little bit of everything, and maybe gives you 10 points a night. So, and Alex Caruso, huge stealer. Yeah, but what are your thoughts about this?
I like Jonathan's team. You mentioned Draymond Green. I think one thing you got to mention was offseason when he punched Jordan Poole. I'm very curious how that affects his playtime, his role with the Warriors moving forward. I don't know if you saw the video. He just straight smacked him. But
he Superman punched his ass. I would have done the same.
Yeah, if it was a what?
Yeah. Especially he was talking did you hear what he was talking about? He was talking about how much he was getting paid, and he was and apparently Damian Lillard had a run-in with him where it was he was just talking a bunch of shit on the court. just annoying shit.
Yeah, it's just very funny to me that Draymond lost his temper when someone else was talking trash, and Draymond's one of the biggest trash talkers in the league. True. Either way, I had Draymond on my team last year. Really good fantasy contributor as long as you're tanking, as long as you can cover points and free throws, which he can with Devin Booker for sure. Furthermore, on this team, Sabonis and Valanciunas or Jonas, I'm just calling him Jonas. Tons of rebounds there. I like this team. I thought he was having a pretty solid draft till he picked Josh Hart. He picked him kind of early. I don't know what the thought was there. Jonathan's a pretty savvy basketball manager, so I was surprised he kind of reached on Josh Hart. Yeah. Like, it seemed like a kind of a desperation pick for rebounds from the guard position or something. But other than that, his team's I like the team, and I like Jonathan as a manager. Yeah, like recently I saw a photo of him. He had like a nice photo shoot with Alvin. He looked like kind of like a model in there, but like unfortunately like looks. But Draymond Green cancels out to the looks there, so like he So yeah, what I'm trying to say is Jonathan's handsome and his team's okay.
Yeah. All right, so the Cool America triggers. This is my little brother, Mike. He did not make playoffs last year, and he was actually trying to get us to push back the draft because he wasn't. I don't think he was there at the beginning. But like overall, I look at his team. Cade Cunningham's gonna have a solid season. Jalen Green's gonna have a solid season. Paul George is gonna have a solid season, like especially with points. Not as much the other stuff. I don't think he's gonna do good in maybe rebounds. Kyle Kuzma has been stepping it up quite a bit. Nurkic, I mean, he's going to be the number one center there. And then Io, going to come off the bench, I think mainly for points. I wouldn't see him running that second unit as much. And Wiseman is probably the one contributor here where I'm kind of like, he might actually do him a lot of good just filling out most of that stuff in that front court where, you know, with rebounds, blocks and whatnot, if he can take that spot from Kevon Looney. But honestly, I think Kevon Looney is going to stay. That's the huge confliction I feel there. But what do you have to say? Yeah,
just to piggyback off your Wiseman point, until the Warriors decide that they're not trying to win championships, I'm pretty sure James Wiseman will be a non-factor to me. Just unless there's an injury to, like you said, Looney. I'm a big Cade Cunningham fan for sure. Paul George, I was looking to draft him actually until Dame fell to me. Yeah. So that's right. The player that's kind of interesting here to me is Mike Conley. I highly doubt he's going to be on Utah all year for a Utah team that's rebuilding and trying to lose. Mike Conley just doesn't fit their timeline. I think he'll get traded. I'm surprised the Lakers didn't go for him considering how much they needed a point guard, but so he's maybe the one player that has room to grow on this team. And then I think Cade will take a big step. Jalen Green, as a Filipino, I got to shout him out. He'll probably take a step up this year with more talent around him. But overall, I mean, I know I say all those good things. I just don't trust Michael to actually set his lineup, so I'm not too worried about them.
And team, one of the last, I think this is our last team, but team.
No, we got a couple. Yeah, we got a couple after them.
Yeah. Oh, so Team D Woo. Our Team Woo, he was dead last place last year, but this year it looks like he actually drafted pretty well with Doncic and Beal probably leading most of his effort there. But then I feel like after that, I mean Poku, if he gets some good minutes in, because he's kind of like a do-it-all player, and that's kind of how he was in Europe. But in the NBA, you know, last year he was a rookie, so we'll see. But after that, it's very top heavy, like very guard heavy, and then the rest I'm not really. The rest is very variable. But what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, so obviously Luka and Beal are going to be solid players. I mean, everybody watching this for the most part watches basketball knows those guys are going to be solid. The big wild card here is obviously Kristaps Porzingis. Yep. I actually just listened to him. He was on Zach Lowe's podcast earlier today, which I think we're filming this. He was on Zach Lowe's podcast earlier this year. He seems like he has the right headset. He's ready to take his game to the next level in Washington, because it really just be him and Beal out there. If Kristaps can stay healthy, I'm really curious what he can do. And then Keldon Johnson's poised to take a big step up this year without DeJounte Murray on that tank and Spurs team. Yeah. And last player I kind of want to talk about is Gary Trent Jr. Last year, obviously, dude can score, but his value last year came in his ability to generate steals. If he replicates any level of that steals production that he did last year, this will be a very solid pick.
His three-pointers were crazy, too. Like he's a sniper.
Yeah.
Seattle Hardens. This is actually my first week matchup. Kyle Tran, first timer here. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that pops up, Durant. Joe Harris, I don't think he's coming back for a while. Jaren Jackson, I don't think he's coming back for a while. And Robert Williams, if he's healthy, my gosh, that's all you really need in the front court. But yeah, I'm curious to see what this team does. I don't want to like jinx it or anything, but like I think marketing in Utah is gonna have a lot of production because, I mean, it's a rebuilding team, so we'll see what happens. But what are your thoughts of this team?
Yeah, I agree. Marketing's gonna have a huge role in Utah. This team is interesting. There are a lot of really savvy picks in there. I think Kevin Durant's a fine pick. He's gonna be on that kind of revenge tour year. I like him. I'm a big Fred VanVleet guy. Drake lookalike. Dude can hoop. He'll be like, as long as you're tanking field goal percentage, he's a pretty solid player.
Yeah.
KCP in Denver, I'm curious what he's gonna do out there. And then Hayward, just like some solid players. Like Fox and Hayward, I think are like two really solid picks. Who he got a good value. And then depending, like what you mentioned earlier, Rob Williams, Time Lord, and Jaren Jackson Jr. Those two guys are shot blocking machines when they're healthy.
He gets them back. This team's solid.
Yeah, it just matters the time when they actually get back.
Yeah, so he might be playing the long game here. And De'Aaron Fox, because the Kings basically pushed Halburn out, like, you know, De'Aaron Fox is the number one, and that's what the Kings are deciding to go with in the future. So we'll see if that pans out the way we want.
I think this is the last team.
Yeah, this is the last team. And David Ruiz did not make playoffs last year. Has a very interesting name, New York Big Booty Boy. But he has Giannis and he has Westbrook. Westbrook's one of my favorite players. But, you know, he's been struggling on the Lakers for sure. Dort just got a huge extension. They're looking to probably play through Dort a lot in OKC. Montrezl Harrell, I think, was he Sixth Man of the Year last year or was that Jordan Clarkson? I can't remember. But
I believe it was Grayson Allen last year.
Grayson Allen. He was Sixth Man of the Year?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I just did not. Okay. Well, with that said, Montrezl Harrell has won the reward. But he was with the Lakers last year. Did actually put up some production. I had him last year. I thought he was pretty good. And D Rose also is one of those people that is running a second unit out in New York. I think, you know, he's like one of those players where I look at him, I get a little sad because I knew what he could have been. And also Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown was on the Nets last year. Very grudgy guy. Gets a lot of small things done. But the main thing I thought was kind of interesting was that Chris Duarte got drafted pretty late, and that's a really good pick there. Any thoughts?
Yeah, you basically named all the players that I wasn't gonna talk about. Like, you didn't name Giannis once on this team, which I thought was interesting.
No, I said his first. Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I was too distracted by the name Big Booty Boy because I can confirm David does have a pretty fat ass. Honestly, like,
damn.
He's pretty.
Pause. Pause.
Like, it would rival that it's like really Kyle Lowry looking booty, David. Good job, man. Anyway, looking at this team, like, there's a lot of big names on here, obviously. Yanni, you got defending Rookie of the Year, Scotty Barnes. Zach LaVine, Bulls guy, I love him. Colin Sexton's going to be pretty good in Utah, taking all the shots he wants. But the X factor for me on this team, the last thing we're going to talk about is Isaiah Jackson. Because as we talked earlier, Miles Turner, I'm sure that's a pending trade. As soon as he leaves and they give Isaiah Jackson that starting center role, that man's going to pop off.
Yeah.
Like this team will get a lot better after the Miles Turner trade.
Yeah. And, so some of the things we want to talk about at the end, basically, who you do, like, just going over teams in general, who do you think, for the most part, will be our dark horse of the year? Starting with you, because I'm not completely sure who I'd go with off the top of my head, but...
Yeah, dark horse of the year.
Just from the teams, like, we just looked at.
Yeah, so out of all the teams we just looked at, which is all the teams... a dark horse, I really like. I kind of like David's team. I was talking to him about it earlier. I'm a big Giannis guy. I think his team's pretty solid. And then if I had to really pick a dark horse here, Kyle Tran's team, because of that Robert Williams, Jaren Jackson Jr. thing. Like, if they come back healthy, his team all of a sudden becomes like the leaders in blocks later in the year, and he has a pretty solid.
I was gonna say that he's playing the long game on that. And I was thinking that could be a really solid team if people come back. Most approved this year, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Me and my brothers, someone got to make the fucking playoffs. There's three of us. Like, basically, we got to do something. And I think this year, I mean, honestly, I'm paying attention. I'm trying to. I'm gonna. My goal is to make playoffs. I don't care if I win it. If I make playoffs, I'm good, bro. I don't give a fuck. Like, yeah. But
that's gonna be a sound bite right there.
Yeah.
To bite you in the if you don't make that. Most approved is probably me. I mean, I talk. If you couldn't tell from this podcast, I talk the most junk.
Talk so much shit
out of everybody out here, and like the past 2 years, I've easily had like the best team. Just been upset, especially last year to Isaac. I mean, congrats to him, but yeah, so there's a lot of pressure on me to do well, hold myself to a higher standard because I'm just that nice. And then, but if I wasn't biased towards myself, I'd probably say that somebody has a lot to prove this year. It's Daniel Wu. I almost didn't invite him this year because he didn't. He was finished dead last. Didn't set his lineup, but maybe once last year. So honestly, Daniel, you're in the hot seat. If you don't pay attention this year, you're probably out of the league, man. Prove to us like that you're not a joke, man. Like Isaac did last year, so anything can happen.
Yeah, because Isaac, the first year he played, he was ass.
Yeah, but Daniel had a solid team this year. I think he has Luka, right?
Yep.
So
Luka
no excuses this year, man. I think so you got a lot to prove.
Luka
Finally have a decent team.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the Final Four prediction at like the top 4 teams. I mean, I can't. This is completely you. So what are you thinking just from looking at everybody?
I'll be honest. Looking at this, it's kind of hard to remember all the teams. I just know I'll definitely be there. I think
D Wu could sneak in there.
You?
Yeah.
If he sets his lineup.
Yeah, I think D Wu and then maybe David Ruiz just from looking at his team.
There were a couple other teams.
Those are probably the only two that like popped up to me when I was like, okay, overall they're pretty well put together. I think Michael's team really wasn't that bad either.
Really?
Looking back at it. Yeah. Like, overall, if he plays the long game here and then, like, Wiseman pounds out how we think it will pan out, like, I think he's good here, but we'll see.
Yeah, I like Tank for Tatum. I like David Yang's team a little bit, too. You got the Holiday, Tatum, Williamson, Poto combo, like, really strong starting 5. As long as Zion's healthy, I could see Tank for Tatum going pretty far. I like Jonathan's team too, the Yotsu Bros. Outside of that Josh Hart pick, he got Draymond, Sabonis, Valanciunas, D Book. I'm sure is gonna be on a revenge tour this year after how they went out last year. I know what team's not gonna be in there. Team Moreno. Don't think I forgot about you, buddy. I'm gonna be on your ass all season. You have the worst team in the league by far. I should have stuck to fantasy football, honestly.
Bro. And then I guess the last thing, most out of like all the players that are in the fantasy draft in general, who do you think who's the most productive or player you think will get the most bang for your buck out of?
Are you just asking me who I think is gonna be like the most like who's gonna finish number 1 in fantasy player wise? Or are you asking me who I think
who's gonna finish number 1 in player? Like who do you think would be the most contested like MVP type level player from who we've drafted? Like, as in, like, will it be Jokic? Like, who's going to put up the most production for the league this year? I mean, I was kind of thinking about, I was like, okay, everybody kind of thinks it's Jokic, but, like, I feel like Giannis could sneak in there in terms of, like, being super, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think so Jokic was the best fantasy player 2 years running.
Yeah.
In category leagues. So like it's pretty easy to say him, but if I had to like I agree, it's like pretty much Jokic or Giannis. That's why they're the first 2 drafted players in pretty much every draft ever. Yeah. If I had to pick like maybe an outside shot, maybe Joel Embiid. Like it'll probably be the real life MVP. I could see them going for him. Yeah. And then I picked up Damian Lillard. So hopefully it's him.
Who got Embiid? I did not see Embiid on
Alvin and Hong.
Okay, they got Embiid.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
They got Embiid.
Okay.
For sure. So.
Well, everybody, thank you so much. The episode, this concludes our first episode of this podcast. Let us know any feedback or anything y'all want. I just want to remind y'all, Westbrook is the GOAT. He's my GOAT. I hope he has a good season. I love this man. And thank you again to Gerard for coming out and recording this with me. But yeah, any feedback or anything, like, definitely let me know. And y'all have a good night.
Thanks for having me.